Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new live stream with Mark Tech. This one is kind of all over the place in terms of topics, but I think all of them are very interesting as we hit the second half of 2024, which means that, of course, we are now looking forward to the upcoming iPhone, to the release of promised software features with iOS 18 and Apple Intelligence. And beyond all of that, of course, we are looking forward to iOS 18, macOS Sequoia, all of that jazz. But of course, there are still smaller releases to happen. I wouldn't call Apple Watch really something small. It's a tremendously successful product category for Apple, but let's not kid ourselves. It's definitely less important than the iPhone overall. And then, of course, on a smaller scale, especially smaller in perspective to the iPad, is that we are still getting some leaks and rumors about an upcoming iPad 11th generation and an iPad mini 7, I believe it would be. I hate that branding. I would just call them like iPad 20 late 2024, iPad mini late 2024, or I would call them by their processors. So that's very interesting. And of course, I want to contextualize all of that with basically what our expectations were and what we can extrapolate based on the individual leaks and rumors that we are now getting, right? So a device, for example, getting a specific processor usually gives us more info than, oh, device a little bit faster. Sometimes from that we can deduce, oh, will Apple bring new software features to that device? Does the new processor open up options in terms of what kind of connector is going to be used? Basically things like that. Now, I would like to start with the one that is probably the most disappointing to most of you guys. But before I do so, I do want to encourage you guys, as always, please subscribe to the channel, help us grow our amazing community, like the videos, that helps out tremendously with the algorithm, comment on the videos. I love me a lively live chat, but of course, commenting on the video once it's been uploaded also helps, and share it out to family and friends who you think might enjoy it. I'm always looking forward to finding new people here from all over the world, talking with you, discussing with you, agreeing with you, disagreeing with you, all that fun stuff. And if you have the resources and you're really enjoying my content, please consider supporting this channel directly. There are now several options for that. There's my Patreon, link in the description of this channel. There are super chats and super stickers. While you catch me live, you can briefly send a small donation, and then I'll definitely read out your live chat. And there are now channel memberships. Shout outs to our Mark Tech Pro Max subscribers, Max, Maximus, and Angelica, and shout out to Louis Gold, our Mark Tech Pro Max supporter on Patreon. Of course, tremendous thanks to anybody who is supporting on the lower tiers or supporting us in other ways. Of course, just watching the videos helps, so I appreciate each and every one of you being here. Give me 1 second, I'll just briefly make sure that everything is working. It should be all fine, no dropped frames. My audio should also be good. Fantastic. So let's start with Apple Watch Series 10. Now, this is how you can write it. Some just write it as Apple Watch Series X, basically, or like the Roman numeral 10, similar to what we got on the iPhone 10. Some just say Apple Watch X or Apple Watch 10 without the series, because that sounds like a bigger change in branding. Without splitting hairs, that's what it's meant when we talk about Apple Watch X in the title. That's Series 10. So basically the successor to the Series 9, to the Ultra 2 in a way. And we are now getting, I believe, what are now the most clear-cut rumors and expectations, basically, that we should be building for the Apple Watch Series 10. I think that it's not going to be an iPhone 10 moment. Now, I've always argued that no Apple Watch could probably replicate an iPhone 10 moment unless Apple goes for like holograms or something. And the reason for that is simple. The Apple Watch has been basically full screen since the Series 4, definitely since the Series 7. right? Series 7 was the one with the redesign, or was it with the Series 6? So, hey Siri, stop. Okay, I have no idea why, but my HomePod just activated. So I guess I said something that confused it. I apologize for that. And of course, it does have already all its buttons that it needs. Like it could get, like for example, like an action button similar to the Apple Watch Ultra. There is no benefit to Apple Watch losing buttons in the way that like the iPhone 10 lost the home button to give us a full screen experience. Of course, similar with the full screen redesign, given that this doesn't have a camera, you won't be getting like a notch, nor will you be losing a notch, similar like the path that we've been on since the iPhone 10 and the introduction of dynamic island and before that like shorter notches. So there isn't that much to do. So for a long period of time, we have talked about the potential of the Apple Watch basically going the iPhone 12 route, right? The iPhone 12, 13, 14 route, where it would be basically squared off. Now, you should understand that the reason why we've talked about it, because some people might say, well, but the iPhone 15, even though it's still mostly squared off, actually went a little more rounded. And we actually remember that when Apple introduced the Apple Watch Series 7, they were actually bragging about how much rounder it is and how supposedly that helps tremendously with durability and things like that. So, what's up with that? Well, if you actually think back to it, that's going all the way back to before the introduction of Series 8 and even before that, Series 7. When people were talking about a squared iPhone redesign, the main guy behind it was Front Page Tech's John Prosser, a great guy, makes fantastic videos these days. However, it so happens that, of course, this never happened, right? In fact, Apple went even more rounder, and we are also supposed to get like a redesign for the connector, right? So the original Apple Watch Series 7 like designs by the likes Front Page Tech actually, of course, were still alluding that it would have the same connector, but then as we are getting closer to the Apple Watch 10, people have said, oh, this will change to like a magnetic style connector, one that will like take up less space inside the chassis, therefore allow for like a bigger battery or an overall thinner design by moving around some internal components. And of course, like there has been so much stuff, and of course with a flat design overall, right, we were also rumored to get a flat front screen similar to what we have in the Apple Watch Ultra. Of course, some people have tried to hedge their bets and said that like, well, this design ultimately turned into the Apple Watch Ultra. That is not true. The Apple Watch Ultra might have a flat front screen, but then it gets like super round and like bulbous almost down below. It's not the prettiest thing. It's designed for durability. And this is why the screen is flat, but the overall body is round, because that's the best thing for each part of the chassis in terms of durability. Of course, there's like the crown guard there to protect the digital crown and the extra buttons. The screen itself doesn't even like completely go flat with the chassis. There's like a small metal elevation around the screen, so it becomes more difficult to damage the screen. So, and this is what this is what we never got, right? A fully flat thing, basically like a miniaturized iPhone 12 on your wrist. And now it seems like we are definitely not getting it. Now, if you're combining like all, of course, with the skepticism with the fact that that redesign never happened for Series 7, Series 8, Series 9, people are asking, well, is it going to happen with Series 10? And how likely is anyone to be right if they've been wrong for so many years? Well, this is according to Mark Gurman. It's basically a lot of the stuff that we, of course, cover here is that the Apple Watch Series 10 will not be getting a drastic redesign. In fact, it will most likely look like this. Those are leaked CAD files for the Apple Watch Series 10, and I'm calling it now Series 10 and not Apple Watch X or something like that, because it's definitely not the kind of huge redesign that would justify a huge rebranding. And it just looks like the Apple Watch Series 9, Series 8, Series 7 before that. The only major thing about it that changes, well, there are two things, one major, one less so. The major thing is that there will be an option for a 49 millimeter Apple Watch. So we've had now 49 millimeter, of course, as the one and only size for the Apple Watch Ultra and Ultra 2, but obviously not on the regular Apple Watch. So supposedly Apple will be killing the smallest Apple Watch size, and replacing it with a family of 45 and 49 millimeter devices. Supposedly a slightly redesigned internals, like a new motherboard technology, whatever. There will also be a new SoC, supposedly not just a rebrand of the S9 system on package, but like a real new processor, like in terms of new cores or whatever. But supposedly still nothing that would bring like Apple Intelligence to on-device processing. My guess in how Apple will plan in the near future to bring Siri to like a newer Apple Intelligence Siri to Apple Watch will be by basically routing Siri through your iPhone. And whenever you're just using the Siri that connects to the cloud, in most cases, it will still be your regular Siri, maybe getting some improvements, but not like from the ground redesigns that are coming with Apple Intelligence. So a thinner Apple Watch, again, we don't quite know how thick exactly, and a larger model, right? So that's pretty common, actually. Like that's what, in many ways, what the iPhone XS Max was to the iPhone 10, right? As a next generation. And of course, new processors, and slight new improvements. The one thing that supposedly isn't getting any big updates, because if you look on the back here, where all your heart rate sensors are, oxygen sensors, whatever, those are not getting a big improvement this year. Supposedly, according to Mark Gurman, a lot of that was like internally planned at Apple to hit 2024, like late 2024, of course, but it's not happening. So the primary features that were in discussion, according to Mark Gurman, and I encourage you, of course, to read his Power On newsletter. I apologize for not actually using his Power On newsletter. I just hate the website behind it, and I'm really grateful, of course, in this case, to The Verge for giving us a nice summary about it. But basically, the two features rumored for that were a blood pressure monitor. There are some smartwatches out there with blood pressure monitor. However, they are not certified by like health agencies. They're more like a wellness feature, and they're like, it's not like they're completely incorrect, but they're like 5 to 10% incorrect. So I wouldn't bet my life on them, but it's still better to have them than not. They're similar in their implementation to how Apple treats their oxygen sensor. But yeah, supposedly Apple wanted to bring blood pressure monitoring to the Apple Watch Series 10. That isn't going to happen. The other would be a sleep apnea. Like it wouldn't be quite a full sensor. I believe it would more be like a combination of like the blood oxygen sensor and other features. Don't forget that Apple's blood oxygen sensor, of course, still faces patent issues in the US. So I would believe that this definitely is getting priority. But yeah, sleep apnea detection would primarily, of course, work through the blood oxygen sensor. And if Apple faces any issues, potentially like never being able to like return this version of the blood oxygen sensor that they currently have, and maybe they're like working on a new one, maybe with a different foundational technology, that of course would mean that they would have to redesign the entire sleep apnea detection feature like next year or something like that, which is definitely not how a company wants to operate. Again, this is disappointing. I don't know how much people really are buying Apple Watches for like these kind of health features. I know that stuff like fall detection, even crash detection, has saved people's lives. I know that the ECG feature and the irregular heart rhythm features have, of course, helped people detect heart issues, and then they went to their doctors, got official diagnoses, and got official treatments. When it comes to stuff like blood pressure, yes, like such a big portion of society unfortunately suffers from blood pressure. So it would be nice if an Apple Watch could be used as like an early detection mechanism. However, I definitely would prefer Apple to only launch this feature if it's actually ready, right? I don't want even like a 5 or 10% like error rate, because otherwise you just end up scaring people. They will run to the doctors unnecessarily, taking away their own time, the doctor's time. So yeah, Apple, please take your time with this stuff, but also please solve that freaking patent issue for your blood oxygen sensor. Now, it doesn't obviously concern me here in Europe, but in the United States, and obviously what goes in the US kind of goes in the rest of the world most of the time, because obviously if the patent dispute right now also blocks Apple from continuously improving the current blood oxygen sensor, that of course hits everyone in the world. Even if we get to keep the current blood oxygen sensor, we still would like a newer one and newer features built on top of that, and patent disputes definitely don't help with that. The only thing that is, I could say, potentially possible, I don't know how much, and I will explain why, is that there's also another rumor that should also be treated with a grain of salt, but also should be properly understood. And I've talked about this on this channel time and time again, not about this particular rumor, but whenever there are some things that are obviously like prototype related, because I always follow like Rene Ritchie's wisdom on that, who back when he was still an Apple YouTuber would say like, yeah guys, we are getting patents for everything, we're getting prototypes for everything. Apple has basically unlimited resources when it comes to stuff like that. They can pump up new intellectual property, patents, and prototypes non-stop, and that's kind of what their engineers are often paid for, outside of like the regular product development, because everything can be useful in the future, right? Any new material they try in the lab could later actually become part of Apple's overall larger family. Like titanium right now are finding its way to the iPhone, being on all pro iPhones. That's something we definitely, like even a few years ago, would have said, oh, that's pretty expensive. Oh, how does that work with structural rigidity versus like stainless steel? How does that work with like heat dissipation versus aluminum? It's all basically like Apple works on everything all the time because they have the money, they have the people to do so. And then what they often end up doing is, for 1,000 no's that they obviously have to figure out behind the scenes, then there is one yes for a new technology, a new design, brand new philosophical approach to device building, operating system design, whatever, that actually finds its way to people in the real world, right? Sometimes it's not so great, as we see with like the Apple Photos app redesign on iOS 18, which I still find somewhat cumbersome, even like after like a few weeks with the betas. But I hope they give us back like the bottom bar. But that's neither here nor there. The thing I want to talk about it in regards to the Apple Watch SE is that Apple supposedly is testing a cheaper plastic Apple Watch SE. Now, if you know, Apple Watch SE is Apple's cheapest Apple Watch. It's more geared towards like Kids, it's geared towards, of course, like lower income buyers. It's $250. One good thing about it is that actually upgrading to like a cellular Apple Watch SE is dramatically cheaper than on a regular Apple Watch, even though like the added functionality is actually the same. So that's quite cool about it. And otherwise, it just follows the design of the Apple Watch Series 4. So it has a thicker bezels than what we would have right now with like the Series 9 or 8. It has an older system on a package processor, and it's lacking some health features like the ECG from the premium Apple Watches. So very sensible cuts in my opinions, especially since the ECG feature isn't even like verified for kids. So putting it on a device that is primarily geared towards kids makes no sense to me. And supposedly there would be like maybe at some point a cheaper, like it should be noted when people are saying it's going to be cheaper, don't forget that the $250 Apple Watch SE is not even anymore really $250 in 2022 money or 2020 money, right? That's more like $280, $300. Like we have, like with inflation right now, a $250 Apple Watch is actually pretty great. So what I'm just trying to say to you guys is, don't expect the Apple Watch to actually get cheaper, even if it switches to plastic. Expect it more to try to keep the same $250 price, and now making more compromises because reaching a $250 price might become more and more difficult as we go forward. And that money conversion thing that I just said, you should think of it in reverse. I misspoke. So, and some people are saying, well, the Samsung's Galaxy Watch SE is like $200. I don't think Apple is trying to reach the exact same price as Samsung. Like, that is never the case. Like, even like the base Galaxy S4 offers like things like 120 hertz. At this point, basically everything offers 120 hertz. Like, even like the latest is it like OnePlus the SMF phone or something like that? Like that just came out for $200, and Apple is still not gonna give 120 hertz to the iPhone 16. It will still be exclusive to iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max this year, and then it's going to finally come to the iPhone 17 and maybe 17 Plus. I don't even know. We know at this point if the 17 Plus exists. So I'm just trying to tell you, Apple is not matching other like companies price to price, feature to feature. They have their own unique approach. They have their own unique selling points, their integration with the ecosystem, their great build quality, their long OS update support, things like that. However, there is a possibility that at some point we might get an Apple Watch SE that is made out of plastic. Now, we don't know if it might coexist with like an aluminum Apple Watch SE and be like $20, $30 cheaper, and basically be like maybe like super kid focused, right? It's like, oh, your kid's first Apple Watch for $220 or something like that. Again, I personally maintain that this is very likely just an internal prototype thing, but basically this is kind of like rounding up our Apple Watch rumors. So no drastic redesign for the Series 10, but like a bigger model and overall some reduction in thickness. No new band attachment mechanism, which I know a lot of people are actually seeing as a very good thing, given how large some of the Apple Watch band collections have become for many people. New processor, again, cannot guarantee you that it's actually dramatically better than the S9, but it's supposedly not quite a rebrand in the same way that we got going from like the S4 to the S5, for example, right? And beyond that, no major new health features, at least this year. So probably next year, I would say. And of course, some continued patent issues for Apple when it comes to developing newer health features, especially regarding the oxygen sensor and the remote possibility, I should say, of an Apple Watch SE eventually going plastic to save money. Again, the reason why I don't think it makes that much sense, I encourage people to look at the base iPad or the current iPhone SE or like the older MacBook Airs that are still in the lineup. None of them have returned to plastic, even though there is actually history in those categories of being plastic, right? The iPhone 5C was unapologetically plastic. The white plastic MacBook is kind of iconic. The iPad, of course, never was plastic, but you would think that on a larger device, actually saving from aluminum down to plastic would actually matter the most, right? On a small device like the Apple Watch, the chassis isn't even a huge part of the overall cost in comparison to the more complex sensors, the system on a package, the OLED screens, right? So I don't even know how much money Apple would save aluminum versus like high quality plastic, because plastic, of course, also comes in different shapes and forms. So yeah, I would encourage to take that with a grain of salt. However, while I say that, I also say that I find the rumors for the Apple Watch Series 10 actually incredibly compelling. Not just, of course, because we now have CAD renders of them, but also because to me, that just makes sense. I've always said keeping the band like attachment mechanism for as long as possible makes the most sense to me. I've always said that the Apple Watch is not in need of a huge redesign because it's still one of the few Apple categories where the majority of people buying an Apple Watch are new to the category. Those people are not like, well, they of course are upgraders, but if you are coming from an Apple Watch Series 4 or 5, right, you're still getting a huge screen upgrade. If you're coming from even like a Series 7, Series 8, there is still a chance that you might appreciate just the option to go with 49 millimeters. And of course, if you are coming from those Apple Watches, you will also have the option to get the Apple Watch Ultra 3. The Apple Watch Ultra 3, I don't know if the rumor still holds about it getting like a slightly larger screen and therefore slimmer bezels. As an user of the Apple Watch Ultra 2, I have to say that the only thing about it that looks a tiny bit unfuturistic is the bezel around the screen. It's a little thick, especially since you also have the metal protection right around it. So that's like a double whammy, unfortunately. So if the Apple Watch Ultra could actually replicate some of the full screenness of the Apple Watch Series 7 and newer, that would be great. And now that would sort of like finish up our family of Apple Watches as we have them right now. Now, whether or not we get a new Apple Watch SE this year as well, we don't know. That rumor about a plastic Apple Watch SE is basically about prototypes in the lab. And unfortunately, if you're somebody who really, really wanted this, I don't know if it's ever happening, quite honestly. I think that Apple doesn't like the fully squared off design of the iPhone 12 anymore. I think they vastly, vastly prefer what they did with the iPhone 15 Pro, well, with the entire 15 family, where it's like just a little bit rounded, just a little bit more comfortable. But that's also an iPhone, right? An Apple Watch still, if you have even a slightly hard edge, sharp edge, and it just pushes against your skin, that's just not something most people will appreciate. And to me, I don't think that Apple is really interested in killing like the user experience for most people like that. So yeah, I would like encourage to fully ignore these rumors, right? If I say like take the plastic Apple Watch SE rumors with a grain of salt, I would just say like completely burn down every rumor in regards to this. And beyond that, I would just say Apple Watch is still exciting to me. I know some people like Drew from Tylosive Tech have said that they're like very uninterested almost because, oh, the Apple Watch has matured. What else can you get out of it? Well, that's not the point. The point of the Apple Watch is that it keeps reaching more people, that it keeps refining its experience. Over time, of course, Apple Watches break, their batteries degrade, their screens might scratch, their chassis might break if you fall with it completely. So people like every 10 years or so will need and want a replacement anyway. So in that regard, I just say while the Apple Watch is very mature and will be subject to diminishing returns, it's still to me like the most exciting watch you can own. And given that a lot of people still own watches, that then to me it's kind of a no-brainer. Of course, unless you don't have an iPhone. Beyond that, I would also just say the Apple Watch to me is also one of Apple's better priced products. I know the Apple Watch Ultra and like the stainless steel models go to like actually pretty high prices, but yeah, I think that especially the Apple Watch SE is a pretty good deal, and I do recommend you guys look at it if you're interested in a smartwatch. But that's to finish up the Apple Watch rumors for today, and to continue with something that I believe actually matters a lot to my community, and that is the iPad. To be more precise, it's the iPads that haven't yet received updates. The iPad, I want to say Series 10, but it's the iPad 10th generation, got a major price reduction, but that was it. The iPad Air, of course, got the M2 chip, double base storage, a repositioned camera, support for the Apple Pencil Pro, things like that, Wi-Fi 6E. Of course, the M4 iPad Pro got its like thinner redesign, also Apple Pencil Pro compatibility, the M4 chip, as the name suggests, and of course a tandem OLED screen. Now, none of that is going to be for coming to the iPad mini or the base iPad, but nevertheless we are overdue updates for both these iPads, and we've actually had like code leaks. I've talked about that in the past when we actually discussed like the potential for us getting an M4 iPad Pro rather than M3, where like device like codes, code names, one might say, actually can betray what chips they use. And basically, the leaked kind of like code names for upcoming iPads are for 11th generation iPads, iPad minis, and an upcoming next generation iPad Pro that might feature an M5 chip, which would suggest that we might not look at a 2-chip gap on the Pros anymore as what we got between the M2 iPad Pro and then the M4 iPad Pro. More like what we had between the M1 iPad Pro and the M2 iPad Pro, where we got like a gen-to-gen regular upgrade in like the regular about like 18-month schedule. So what should we be looking forward to? Well, supposedly, for one, we had also codes for devices that got scrapped. So we had like M3 code iPads that, of course, never happened, and at this point are very, very unlikely to ever happen. Right now, what we are looking forward to are, and whenever we have two models, that's coming from cellular and non-cellular. The iPad, the regular iPad would go from an A14 chip right now to an A16 chip. Now, that's not a huge upgrade, but it's kind of the exact upgrade I would expect it to get, something that wouldn't result in an increase in price. I hope that the A16 here also comes with 6 gigs of memory, because while I do believe that Apple is really good at RAM management, I believe even a sub $400 device still should have about 6 gigabytes, especially if you want to encourage people to use like split screen multitasking on it. Now, that chip won't give it the ability to have things like not center stage. Oh, I always forget what these features are called. like Stage Manager. I had to look it up on my iPad. But it will definitely make it smoother. It's a 4 nanometer chip, so it could be more efficient in a way that would either slightly improve battery life or allow you to have the same battery life while doing more taxing work on the iPad. And of course, if my prediction of it getting 6 gigs of memory is correct, that of course would greatly benefit the iPad overall in terms of how many tasks it can run simultaneously without slowing down, without deleting any apps from the background. So that would be quite cool. Overall, a solid upgrade. If it keeps $350 base price, that's pretty great. Nothing in that price range has that kind of like modern processor. I would expect it to probably still stay at 64 gigabytes of storage just because of the price difference to all the other iPads, and so that Apple can keep upselling you on like a 256 gigabyte model for $500, which, while yes, that makes it dramatically more expensive than 350, that's still now a lot cheaper than a 256 gigabyte model was before. So yes, nothing too groundbreaking here, a very expected kind of update, but I think a welcome one. Next is the iPad mini, and the iPad mini is where I'm actually not really surprised, but I'm still like skeptical, because the iPad mini supposedly will be getting an A17 chip. Now, we don't know if that means A17 Pro or some kind of other version, maybe a bin down A17, maybe a one with less memory, who knows. But my expectation was for a while now that the iPad mini would likely get an A18 chip, just maybe a bin down version, because A17 is built on N3B. And similar to how I don't expect Apple to pretty much ever produce like new N3B chips like M3, for example, like only service the generations that we have right now, sell out of them, and move as quickly as possible to like M4 and M5 generations. I'm not sure if this is going to like be correct, but according to like the leaked code names and stuff like that, we should expect it to get A17. Now, there is one possible explanation that could contextualize this in a reasonable way, and that is the fact that, of course, Apple has produced a lot of A17 Pro chips for the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. However, those chips were actually subject to pretty low yields at TSMC. Like, this is partially the reason why N3B is getting basically fully replaced by N3E production, and that's because N3E has much better yields. Now, if we actually believe that, which I do, and now you can think of like, well, what does that mean for the A17 chip? Well, it probably very likely means that a lot of produced A17 Pro chips were not actually like A17 Pro ready, right? They might have not all CPU cores working. At that point, they could become like potential Apple TV processors, like right, the for example the A15 chip inside the the latest Apple TV 4K. That one has one performance core disabled. It might have GPU cores disabled, similar to what we had between the A15 on the iPhone 13 Pros and the regular iPhone 13 models. At that point, I would believe it would justify the A17 losing its Pro branding, but everything else about it would still be very good, right? 2 performance cores, 4 efficiency cores, a 35 TOPS neural engine. At that point, it would also, if it still gets 8 gigabytes of memory, be able to run Apple Intelligence features. Oh, Daniel Sien, hey guy. I've actually you're saying you're watching my video about Apple Intelligence now. Well, yeah, we are. I am going to mention Apple Watch Intelligence later on, saying I never disappoint. Thank you so much. I also, of course, read your recommendations. Guys, and this is something I wanted to say, I am looking forward to creating more content, more different types of content. I know that I've been promising this kind of since like the WWDC days. However, it's very very difficult to me because I have for me because I have such a fully loaded schedule. I've already tried to like structure my live streams in a way where I can set up timestamps really well. For example, on this video I will make timestamps almost immediately when I'm ready, right? So if you're looking forward to smaller videos, that's where you can go to my live streams. I also try to like respond to questions and queries in a way that like fits very well to the topic, and those that don't I like leave more to the end, right? So I try to make the videos a little bit more structured, so watching them outside of a live stream is easier and more enjoyable. But I will be making extra content. I just have to make sure that it's up to my quality standards. The reason why I'm doing live streams are twofold. For one, it is my favorite type of way to create content, because whenever we have a lot of people actually here and a very lively interaction in the live chat, that in my opinion makes me a better YouTuber, and it makes my job easier in communicating my points to you, because you can ask me direct questions, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. However, I do understand that some of you want to find like videos that are like Mark Tech, 15 minutes long max. They're either slightly edited, or at least they're like cut out portions of my live streams. This is the thing I'm currently most considering. The problem with that is that I feel like sometimes if you cut out a 20-minute portion of a 1 hour live stream, it just feels weird, because you can definitely tell that like, oh, some jokes don't land because they were like in context of something that happened earlier or something like that. So yeah, I for now, to the likes of Daniel, who like also left comments on previous videos, if you want to catch my latest videos, please go to the actual live stream section of my channel, and please hit the notification bell, which if you actually care, of course, catching me live, that's the best way to do so. Have you heard the new big news from Gurman about tabletop robot will be Apple's first home device with Apple Intelligence features? Yes, I have. I will be covering that in like not a separate section, but I will be mentioning it. Spoiler alert, I believe this is complete bullshit. I don't know what that robot is supposed to do, and I cannot think of a single Apple device, especially something that is remotely expensive, that has like no real functionality, right? What would that robot be? Would it have an A18 chip with 8 gigs of RAM or even more inside, just so it could communicate with Apple Intelligence Siri? What would you do? Why wouldn't you? This is the stuff that I'm always asking, like, what does it do that my phone doesn't do? We've had that discussion with like all the AI gadgets that you like connect to your clothes and whatever, and I'm like, what does it do that my smartphone doesn't do? Because I already have my smartphone, and it has better cameras, better displays, better speakers, better cellular connectivity. It already has a cellular contract. It's already connected to my smartwatch. It has a ton of storage. Yes, Daniel, you're saying it sounds like a project for the future, and this is why I've said that, by the way, about when I talked about the Apple Watch SE going plastic. I have said that there is a ton of stuff inside Apple's labs. Some of it might make sense, right, on a very basic level, like, oh, plastic cheaper than aluminum. If we plan on making new Apple Watch SE either even cheaper or keeping the same price despite inflation, things like that, let us go plastic, right? Of course, Apple now is more into AI, so maybe they're now looking at some kind of like secondary product, right, that would bring you Apple Intelligence, sort of like its own operating system, because of course Apple Intelligence could then also like get data potentially from your phone, from your iCloud, whatever, and that could be a robot. But if it's like a tabletop robot, right, what does it do? Like, I expect my robot to like catch me a drink and clean my floors. If I have a robot on my table, what does it do? Like, does it like what does it do? Like, I cannot even think of that. I was gonna say, does it like is it like a pencil sharpener? But like, who the frick uses pencils outside of Apple Pencils? If you like, in like a pitch in the Apple ecosystem world, right? Like I really don't get it. I've seen like some products like that that have popped up, and I just cannot think of a single use case, especially if it's expensive, right? And if it's a tabletop device, right, and you're using it concurrently with like your Mac, at what point does it not make sense to just make the Mac like an Apple intelligence powerhouse? If that was true, would be concerned about security. What if someone asks about my whereabouts when I'm not home? Well, I would assume it would be like voice coded to like you, right? Similar to how you cannot just say, "Hey, voice assistant," with any voice, at least not anymore these days. I would assume that it could be like locked based on like your smartphone being in close proximity. And of course, with everything else, it's kind of like, well, once somebody has like your passcode, or once somebody breaks into your apartment, at that point, some of your privacy is like already broken, right? Like, is it that much worse that they read your calendars versus them going through your underwear? I would argue, of course, it is, but some people would argue against that kind of thinking. So yeah, I think this kind of product makes perfect sense to like explore in a lab setting, but I don't think it has any justification coming to an actual product. Guys, we're about 45 minutes in. I'll briefly finish up the iPad story, but before that, I do want to encourage you, anybody who's still watching, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share out the video to anybody who you think might enjoy it. And as Daniel is showing, of course, if you're leaving a comment in the live chat, I love interacting with you guys, love discussing certain topics. And if you feel like supporting me directly, you can leave a super chat or a super sticker right while I'm live as we talk, or you can subscribe to my channel memberships and subscribe to my Patreon. Link is in the description below. So what I was going to say, of course, the iPad 11th gen getting A16 makes sense. As when it comes to the iPad mini, it getting A17. I expected it to get A18, but if we actually have, and this is the point I was trying to make, is that if A17 Pro had actually really low yields because it was built on N3B, well, it is still built on N3B, it stands to reason that we might have a lot of chips that have like one GPU core disabled, for example. And at that point, it could be a pretty good candidate for an iPad mini. Now, that would still leave questions if an iPad mini like that would get the full 8 gigabytes of memory that the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro Max have, like 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max have. I believe it would, simply because the iPad mini is $100 cheaper than the iPad Air. And for $100 more right now, you go from an A15 iPad mini to an M2 iPad Air with 8 gigabytes of memory. You get, of course, the larger screen. Now you get also more forward-looking Wi-Fi 6E and things like that. So in my opinion, A17 would make a lot of sense. It would also bring like 10 gigabit per second USB-C. I believe the current iPad mini is 5 gigabytes. I'm gonna have to briefly look that up if my memory doesn't betray me. iPad mini, looking at tech specs. Buttons and connectors. It doesn't say here. Chip, camera, video calling, speakers, microphone, USB, supports Apple Pencil, USB. Yeah, USB 3 with up to 5 gigabits per second. So if we follow the logic from the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, that would then go up to 10 gigabits per second, which would also allow it to have even higher quality like video output. I don't believe even with 8 gigabytes of memory that it would necessarily get Stage Manager. That definitely would be interesting though. I think that Apple will just say, oh, the screen is too small, the output of the port is still not good enough. Like if we look at actually, does the iPad Air have officially Thunderbolt because it's an M series chip? Is that how it works for the iPad Air? No, it's USB 3. Well, okay. Then it might make some sense, I guess, to then say, well, now we give you Stage Manager. I guess it would then be a question, why do we withhold Stage Manager at that point from the iPhone? Especially since the iPhone wouldn't even be able to run apps, like multiple apps simultaneously on the screen. So it actually would technically have more memory available for the apps that are being output to an external monitor. But yeah, that's actually interesting. I forgot that despite having like M2, this doesn't actually have Thunderbolt. And iPad Mini A15 RAM. I just want to look up. Yeah, the iPad Mini right now has 4 gigabytes of memory. So that means for $100 more, right? Going from a 4 gigabytes iPad Mini to an iPad Air, you get the larger screen, the big M series chip, and you also get like double the double the storage and double the RAM. So the amount of stuff that you get for $100 more is absolutely amazing. Guys, give out a shout out to Angelica, who is our MarkTech Pro Max supporter, saying she just joined. So that's very, very much appreciated. She has the blue badge, which is great. Daniel saying, I think that the MacBook with 8 gigs of RAM would not work as expected with Apple Intelligence because 8 gigs isn't enough to run smoothly. Probably one of the reasons they're pushing most of the features to 2025. To be honest, I think Apple is just in the process of refining their LLMs. A lot of people, I believe, including me, I'm not sure if I actually want to stem that burden. They said that like Apple's LLMs would be like 4.1, 4.2 gigabytes. That was in reference to like the latest on-device version of Llama, like basically that open large language model from Meta that wasn't actually Apple Intelligence. Supposedly Apple Intelligence is sub 2 gigabytes, like 1.7 gigabytes. Now, given that the Mac is also likely to still host other apps, maybe like a super RAM intensive Chrome with 20 tabs open, yeah, I could see 8 gigabytes being a problem there, but you have to understand Apple doesn't advertise its features as like working flawlessly while having Final Cut open, while having 20 tabs open in Chrome or something like that. They advertise their features as working flawlessly. It's basically like a clean device with maybe 2-3 background tasks. Of course, the push notifications enabled for things like email, iMessage, WhatsApp, stuff like that. Don't forget, we often say like, oh, Macs are like highly memory like sensible because they have such big apps. Don't forget that the iPhone has like 4K 60 cameras, right? That are technically like the main camera being 48 megapixel, and you have like data of all 3 cameras coming in simultaneously. There is a lot that the iPhone can quote unquote waste its memory on. And I just want to tell people like 8 gigabytes is enough while your device is not loaded with other stuff. Now, the question is about Apple Intelligence 2. I've actually read, I believe it was like a Reddit thread or somebody on like a Mac Rumors forum or something like that, where somebody suggested that Apple Intelligence could be treated as its own like operating system almost, and that Apple Intelligence would see like major new releases. So instead of Apple Intelligence being just like an app, basically, like we never got like Apple Photos 2. We just got like redesigned and updated Apple Photos that are part of the latest iOS release. And what we could see instead is Apple might say like, here's Apple Intelligence, and here is Apple Intelligence 2, right? And Apple Intelligence 2, similar to how iOS 18 will come to devices going as far back as the iPhone XR and XS, but many features from it will be exclusive to newer devices with newer processors, more memory, better storage, all things like that. And I could see Apple Intelligence actually evolving in that way, where you're saying like, well, 8 gigabytes might not be enough. Well, Apple Intelligence 2 might say, well, some features inside Apple Intelligence 2 actually require a 12 gigabyte device, right? Or a 16 gigabyte device. We already have that with Xcode, right, which is getting like its Apple Intelligence based code compiler, right? And that one actually works on 16 gigabytes of memory devices. So this one, while technically being part of Apple Intelligence, will not be available automatically just because you have an M1 device. If you have like M1 and 8 gigabytes, then this one will not work. So I'm just trying to tell you, I think that Apple will actually over time diversify Apple Intelligence, and they've kind of already started that, as we see like with individual app features like this, in a way that they also diversify like the main iOS releases, iPadOS releases, right? Not every iPad has Stage Manager, for example, even though that's kind of a no-brainer thing. Back in the day, not every iPad had split-screen multitasking. Of course, now a ton of stuff on Macs is like exclusive to Apple Silicon ones, but over time, some stuff might get cut off from the M1 generation entirely, and will be like, oh, we don't just want like 8 gigs of memory, but we also really, really want a faster neural engine. So even if you have like an M1 Max, Apple will find ways to restrict those features from running on it, or just say, oh, the M1 Max would just consume so much power because it would have to run all of that on like a 5 nanometer huge GPU, right? While the M5 can run it on like the neural engine that is inside the base processor with how many tops it has and whatever. So yeah, I think that actually Apple Intelligence, it will surprise us still a lot in the future. That's all I'm going to say. And speaking of Apple Intelligence, that's kind of the last point I wanted to make about the iPad mini, which is if it gets 8 gigs of memory, which I hope. Now, the reason why I actually opened that is because with the iPad mini having only 4, is because there is a chance that iPad mini would only go up to 6 gigabytes. I hope it doesn't. I hope it goes up to a full 8. That would also make it very future-proof. It would also make it instantly compatible with games like Assassin's Creed Mirage, Resident Evil 4, 7, and 8. So I kind of think that might be Apple's push here, that they will say like, oh, it's the A17 chip, which means it has like the newest GPU with all the like shaders and stuff like that. It has like maybe like 5 GPU cores instead of 6, but overall it is still like more efficient than the A15, more powerful than the A15. It has more memory than the A15 inside the iPad mini, and that will make it a much better product. And if you're looking to the future, supposedly there will be iPad Pro models based on M5. Nothing too surprising there. I would believe if M5 is kind of in the works already, I would expect it to then be an N3P model. I have like a bet running with Vadim Yurev from MaxTag, where I say that like any processor that launches late 2025 is very likely to be 2 nanometer, while anything that launches in the first half is definitely N3P, or like still even N3E to a degree. But yeah, so and M5 is kind of like, we don't know when exactly it's coming out, right? If it holds to like an 18-month schedule, it could launch in like November 2025, at which point my bet with Vadim would tell me that I sort of have to stand by it potentially being 2 nanometer. Daniel saying maybe that could happen. I saw that they are bringing A18 to iPhone SE 2025. Again, I don't know if Apple might do a huge RAM uplift, right? Sometimes that happens with Apple, right? When you think about the iPhone 10 and 10s and iPhone 11, you will find that one of the biggest downsides to those devices was actually like their 4G connectivity, right? They had like relatively bad Intel modems. Well, the iPhone 10 had like a mix of Qualcomm and Intel modems, but the Qualcomm modems were actually throttled to only replicate the speed of the Intel modems. And then the iPhone XS and the iPhone 11 families were all Intel only. And Apple did that because it was cheaper. And basically, by flagship standards, Apple had some of the worst cellular connectivity. Now, it was still perfectly functional, but still, right? And you can think of that similarly to how memory works, right? Apple still has a sufficient amount of memory inside their iPhones, 6 or 8 gigabytes on the iPhone 15 or 15 Pro, respectively. But in comparison to other smartphones, like the OnePlus 12 gives you like a 24 gigabyte option. Samsung, while still being a little bit stingy on memory, at least they have a 12 gigabyte version. But when you actually think from the iPhone 11 to the iPhone 12, what did we get? Well, we got Qualcomm modems. That's one thing. But Apple actually redesigned their antenna to go from some of the worst flagships when it comes to cellular connectivity to being the objectively best, especially with the iPhone 13 Pro family. Like that one was like in every test, like the fastest smartphone when it comes to cellular connectivity, like for half a year or more in ways. So yeah, if the iPad mini comes with A17 and doubles the RAM, that could happen because sometimes Apple will drastically improve something from being just good enough to being great, right? Because the iPad mini having 8 gigs of memory is going to be amazing. And it would really put into question why the frick does the M4 iPad Pro start with 8 gigabytes if a $500 iPad mini can already give you that amount of memory already. So, and I hope that that would then encourage Apple to give us 12 gigabytes of base on like M4 Max and M5 iPads, eventually 16 gigabytes, and much cheaper 24, 32, 36 gigabyte options, depending on how exactly the configuration works with how many memory modules. So yeah, that would be something I would really look forward to. You have an iPhone 13 Pro and my brother Pixel 7, and you always complain about signal on the Pixel. Yes, but the Pixels are also like exceptionally bad because they also get like Samsung modems, and they are really behind Qualcomm. In a way, they are kind of like the new Intel modems of the day. And yeah, the iPhone 13 Pro will demolish even the current generation like Pixel 8. It could even be better than like the Pixel 9 Pro that is about to come up, given that it's still supposedly like using Samsung modems, and Samsung still hasn't done like a big leap when it comes to that. Big Samsung leaps are happening next year when they're going with like 3 nanometer for their main processors. Supposedly they also have a new modem design on the way. But yeah, this year, if you have like a 2 or even 3-year-old iPhone, you might match a Pixel, a current flagship Pixel, in like processor efficiency. Even like an iPhone 12 could beat it in like single core performance with its A14 chip. So yeah, they're like Pixels are just, it's such a shame because the idea of Pixels were so great to give you just like a clean Google device, but Google just refusing to give you a regular Qualcomm chip inside, or even partnering with somebody like MediaTek, that's just like really harming the entire device. So that is basically it for the iPads. Again, I did promise I would divide this video evenly in like sections, but now I made this topic like twice as long by also interacting with you guys in the chat. So if you ask me why do I like doing live chats, I do actually like interacting with you guys. Nobody forces me to read basically every chat message, but I really enjoy doing so. And the last topic, sort of least because it's not 100%. It sounds kind of like far-fetched in one regard, but I'll contextualize all of it as we go through it. Again, thank you to The Verge, to 95Mac, Mac Rumors, all the websites that aggregate Mark Gurman's reports, but of course, special thank you to Mark Gurman for making these reports. Now, there is a revamped version of Siri, and supposedly that one is not coming. Well, it's basically confirmed to not be coming with the initial release of iOS 18, so like iOS 18.0, and people were speculating, well, would it be iOS 18.1 or something like that? Well, supposedly not. And according to Mark Gurman, it will take until iOS 18.4 in the spring of 2025, and it would start with a beta testing period starting in basically in very, very early 2025 in January. And now again, still Apple Intelligence also, for people like me, it's not coming right away to Europe. I hope that Apple finds some kind of agreement with like European regulators before it's actually time to release the more advanced Apple Intelligence features. Of course, some of them are coming their way right away with iOS 18. Others will have to be like spaced out. And yeah, Siri is the one thing that is definitely not coming very early on. However, I believe the Siri like glow up thing will be coming earlier. I'm not sure about that though. We still haven't yet hit the beta testing period for Apple Intelligence. I desperately hope there is a way to like for me to test it in some ways, because I have like an M1 iPad Pro, I have an M1 Max, a MacBook Pro, I have an A17 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max. I have so many devices that could run Apple Intelligence. It, of course, would be a shame to fully miss out on it. But yeah, if you are somebody who was looking forward to a brand new Siri that would be able to like more directly interact with all your applications. The more capable version of Siri allows the voice assistant to control actions within apps, allowing you to understand what is currently on screen and determine what to do based on context. So basically much, much smarter. Apple Intelligence itself launches in the fall. Again, while the entire new version of Siri will not be available at this time, other Siri features such as new design and ChatGPT integration should be present upon the debut of Apple Intelligence this year. As far as I know, Siri will still get better with iOS 18. It just won't be able to have all of the advertised functionality. Like, I believe that like its understanding will still be like LLM based and things like that. But this is why we need to start a beta testing period for Apple Intelligence, so we can actually get a good understanding of what is coming in the initial rollout of iOS 18. Because in the current state, some of Apple's announcements have been a tad bit contradictory, what is coming exactly when. So yeah, but now Mark Gurman basically gave us something to look forward to with iOS 18.4. Daniel is saying, you don't get this delay with Siri. I saw a Twitter from Nicholas Malini that appeared, and a bunch of YouTube have tried and said it was amazing. Nope. What those people were testing was just the animation. That's the only thing. Nobody can test Apple Intelligence Siri right now. I don't know if from what I understand, it was just the animation. There is a chance that somebody might have unlocked like beta features for like the better Siri. However, that Siri that Mark Gurman talks about does not technically exist yet in code. There is a better Siri, but then there is the better Siri coming, according to Mark Gurman, in early 2025. As I said, Siri should still get better with iOS 18 even before this iOS 18.4 thing. I mean, we can go to like Apple Intelligence, right? So I believe it would be iPhone, iOS 18 preview, Apple Intelligence. So Apple Intelligence itself is coming this fall as a beta, that should be said, but there will also be a beta inside of iOS 18 beta that has been confirmed by Apple. Numerous things like Apple Intelligence, like writing tools, very, very likely are coming right away, right? That is on device. It's a very pretty typical task for an LLM, so that makes sense. Things like managing your notifications, priority messages in mail, making summaries of mails, I believe of messages too, but definitely in mail. Uh, just hit records in the notes of phone apps. So that's like summaries and transcriptions, reduce interruptions with a new focus mode based on AI, and smart reply features. So that is definitely coming. Then we have like Apple Intelligence creation features. So basically things like image generation, even with like a special apps coming from it, generative Memoji, an image wand to better improve like your drawings and like your if you like make a graph by hand and something like that. Creating custom memory movies, search for photos and videos with the help of AI. That definitely is not inside the iOS 18 Photos app. I can tell you that. I've done some searches, and features like cleanup that are based on newer, more advanced AI models. And then there will be Siri, right? Which Apple, of course, talks about as like its own separate thing. But it's weird because you see, like, it's not like Siri has like a gigantic button here that says like, oh, Siri is like all delayed or something like that. So it starts with an all new design. Daniel, that's what you said that people have been finding online. You find what he said: just got my first look at Apple Intelligence and it's mind blowing. It's faster than anything, it's bigger than we think. Wait, you're saying they tried it? You mean like they tried it behind the scenes at Apple or something like that? Because yeah, I could believe that. But I also like sometimes people just say stuff, right? Like I believe Apple could have given them a preview. I don't know if they actually got to try it out themselves, or maybe Apple showed them like a special demo. Those are very, of course, different things because a demo can be much more controlled. But yeah, I actually am very, very like optimistic about what we'll get like with Siri once we get like that full update that like is aware what is happening on screen, or what how it communicates with your own applications and things like that. It's just that the initial version that we're getting with iOS 18, I don't know how comprehensive it is. So what we're getting is an all new design, very likely, I believe, coming right away, right? Makes no sense to delay it. Double tap on the bottom opens up type to Siri. That's cool. Also, no reason to delay that. Tap into the expensive product knowledge Siri has about device features. Would there need to be a delay for that? I honestly don't know. I don't think so. I think it was a super strict demo. Well, yeah, that to me would make sense. Richer language understanding, and it has voice make communicating with Siri even more natural. Yes. But now I don't know if this one is delayed or not. Apple Intelligence empowered Siri with on-screen awareness. This is definitely not coming with the iOS 18.0 Siri, right? Personal context, and seamlessly take action in and across apps. That one is definitely not coming right away. This is why I'm a little confused because what does Apple say here? Siri draws on AI for all new superpowers, new design, richer language understanding, and the ability to type to Siri whenever it's convenient for you. Equipped with awareness of your personal context, the ability to take. Wait, what is ChatGPT? Apple Intelligence. Wait, what did Apple officially say? Like, what if of that will be missing in iOS 18.0? We know they said during the presentation that this is coming at a later date. I'm almost 100% sure that that was the case. But I don't know to what other features it applies. Apple Newsroom. I believe they should have explained that after like WWDC. New versions of Final Cut, Apple Arcade, blah blah blah. WWDC new features. Wait, did they not make Apple Intelligence like its own thing? New ways. Okay, no, that is Command F, intelligence. No. WWDC 2024 highlights. But I doubt that they will be talking here about like what isn't coming. Vision OS, home and audio, macOS Sequoia, iPad OS, iOS 18. They don't even mention Apple Intelligence here. I think Apple Play. Daniel's saying, you think Apple Playground ChatGPT with Siri and UI will come at launch because they need to bring something to the iPhone 16 Pro? Well, yeah, and they also need to release something in general. It's just like, I don't know why is Apple not clarifying that, because that is actually very important information. I don't like it when stuff like this is like in any way hidden. Because usually you would have like a number here, and it would once you go down, it would tell you that some features are coming later, right? And some features, additional languages and platforms will be coming over the course of the next year. Yes, but usually Apple would have like a double star there for a feature that might not be coming right away. This is why I'm a little confused. I mean, again, to me, it doesn't even matter that much because I'm in the European Union, but that's still weird. iOS 18 Siri, I guess, rollout? Apple Intelligence and this better Siri may be coming. Siri with improved with Apple Intelligence. There will be a Siri with Apple Intelligence right before that. It just won't be that full-on Siri. And you see, this is the issue with Google, right? It just gives you news. This is the regular search, and it basically is news. It gives you like the latest version. It doesn't give you like exactly what you search for. But yeah, I believe that definitely we will be getting an improved Siri right away, especially with like the design. But it makes no sense for like all Siri features to only come later, because integration with things like apps, I believe that takes extra work, right? But would every single one of those features take extra work? Would like even giving you like tips in how to interact with your device? Like, I believe this will be like Siri using like LLM to well understand what you're saying, but then it will just ask the server, what do you do? That now, I don't know, for example, Siri set an alarm. Oh my god, I hope I didn't activate my Siri. And then it's like, and then you can change it mid-sentence. I don't know, is that coming right away or not? Now I'm actually really, really confused. And unfortunately, because it's a live stream, I cannot just open Apple's WWDC video, because that will cause this video to not just get demonetized, but probably blocked entirely. So yeah, that's a shame. But to control... The more capable version allows the voice assist to control action within apps, allowing it to understand what's currently on screen and determine what to do based on context. Those are not all the features coming with Siri in iOS 18. Better natural language understanding, recommendations on how to interact with your device and things like that. Those are features that are not specifically mentioned here. The more capable version of Siri, that is how I choose to interpret it. Ah, Jesus. Apple's big Siri upgrade should arrive new spring. Siri's new capabilities are bound to be a highlight of the Apple Intelligence rollout. For the first time, the digital assistant will have precise control over actions inside of Apple's apps. That means you can ask Siri to, say, edit a photo and then ship it off to a friend. It will also have the ability to understand what you're looking at on your display, helping Siri determine what you want to do based on the context. But neither of those upgrades will be ready when Apple Intelligence launches this fall, as I've previously reported. Instead, I'm told Siri features are likely to go in beta testing for developers in January and then debut publicly around springtime. Other Siri features, such as a new design and ChatGPT integration, will be coming later this year. However, those are like the lowest of features. ChatGPT integration is not even a full-on feature. It's an extra thing bolted on. A new design, granted, that's cool, but that's hardly what I'm looking forward to as a great improvement to a voice assistant. Can you tell me, Mark Gurman, if actual better like neural understanding of voice and language is inside Siri in iOS 18? I think Apple needs to be more clear with their timeline of Apple Intelligence. Yeah, the problem is they were more precise with that on stage. It's just I cannot open that right now. As I wrote last week, Apple Intelligence also will be coming to Vision Pro, but not until next year. By the way, Daniel, you said like Apple is like figuring out how to bring like Apple Intelligence to 8 gigs of RAM devices. Well, Vision Pro has 16 gigs of RAM. Now, granted, a lot of that is being used all the time because you have like a lot of apps simultaneously. I don't know how much of the like the pass-through video is taking up in terms of memory, or if it just goes through like the separate memory for like the R1 chip. But yeah, so it's not just memory that is a limitation. It's also like power envelope, bandwidth of the processor, with how much is being utilized and things like that. And of course, part of that is also just optimizing Apple Intelligence for the user interface, the user experience of Vision Pro. Yeah, so yeah, again, so my speculation here is, and people who are watching this afterwards can tell me if I'm wrong, Siri will be getting improved in iOS 18. It will launch as a beta in general. But it will also have like beta releases for like developers and public betas, and it will be basically a newer design of Siri with like that whole all-screen thing and a support for ChatGPT. My belief is that it will also have better voice understanding and better like language understanding. Maybe things like double queries will like correcting yourself while talking to Siri, right? What we talked about here. Maybe that will come right away. That's here, right? But then everything afterwards, I would believe, will come then early next year. So screen awareness, maybe I have no idea if personal context needs a lot more work too, but yeah, maybe. And then actions across apps, that's the one thing I actually fully remember from WWDC when it comes to like the rollout of Apple Intelligence, is that this is definitely not coming right away. This is coming sometime early next year. So this got a little confusing, but I think we have like a somewhat satisfactory intermediate answer almost. Like it's not a super precise answer I can give you, unfortunately, but it's kind of the best one. Part of that is that Apple is not giving us too many details. Mark Gurman isn't giving us too many details. But yes, 2 or 3 of those features definitely are not coming right away, maybe more. But yeah, the design and the ChatGPT integration, those will be there right away, which is cool because ChatGPT 4.0 is still pretty good. And by the time iOS 18 comes out, hell, maybe the more advanced ChatGPT 4.0 features will actually be out, because they have now been like secretly delayed by like 2-3 months at this point. Still aren't out yet, still don't have an official release date. So yeah, again, all of these AI features, they are all now getting delayed because there's just so much stuff, like when it comes to building servers, building the infrastructure, testing for like privacy, security issues. It just all takes extra time, and a company like Apple that takes privacy, security, good user experience especially seriously, I believe that they definitely need even more time than that. So with that, I would like to finish up the video. For anyone who watched, thank you so much. To anybody who, of course, watches afterwards, not live, thank you for that as well. Please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, sharing it out, commenting on it. And if you want to support me directly, if you catch me live, leave a super chat or a super sticker. If the video has already been uploaded, you can also leave what's called a super thanks. And you can subscribe to my Patreon. Shout out to Louis God, our MarkTech Pro Max tier supporter. Or you can create a MarkTech Pro or a MarkTech Pro Max tier membership here on YouTube. Shout out go to Angelica and Max Maximus, who are both MarkTech Pro Max supporters there as well. But of course, big shout out to anybody who, of course, just watches the videos and interacts with me. Daniel saying, this is one of the reasons I'm not even thinking of getting an iPhone 16 and an iPad as well. I prefer for the iPhone 17 Slim / Ultra. Yeah, and we'll be definitely talking about like how worthwhile it will be to wait for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, Slim, Ultra, whatever sub version you are considering. It will also be like interesting how everything is priced or not. You're saying iPhone 16 feels like an S year. Yes, but if you actually like survey the Apple community, you will find that the S years are some of the most popular ones. Right, the iPhone 4 has got such a huge performance increase over the iPhone 4, right? Like double the CPU performance, 7 times the GPU performance, 8 megapixel camera, full HD video recording, things like that, right? iPhone 5S got better cameras over iPhone 5, better battery life, better processing with its 64-bit A17 chip, Touch ID sensors for more advanced authentication on the device. Right, iPhone 6s didn't bend versus the iPhone 6 was twice as fast in many ways. It brought 3D touch, which was a very beloved feature, which unfortunately went away because it didn't find enough love in the community. That's still a big regret that I have. But yeah, so again, even if 16 is an S year, I'm actually pretty excited about the 16 Pro. However, I myself don't see much of a reason to buy a 16 Pro myself because, well, I have the 15 Pro. And it doesn't matter to me if something is an S year or not. I'm just probably not going to upgrade gen to gen anymore unless my finances involve into something crazy, right? Where money literally doesn't matter. Without that, I just find it wasteful because while I do have the money for it, I usually prefer to like only buy new devices when I also have somebody who I can hand down my older devices to. And right now, I don't have really anybody who would need my 15 Pro Max, and it's still in such a good shape. It kind of feels wasteful, as I said. So, but without further ado, I would want to end this video. As always, please let me know what you would like to see me cover next. This has been kind of like a summary of leaks that have accumulated over the last weeks. Let's see what accumulates over this one. I'm probably gonna react to the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked event this Wednesday. I'm not quite sure. I will definitely let you know, and I will create like a like the actual live stream for that, like at least like 6-8 hours before that. So if you follow me, if you subscribe here on YouTube, you will know. But if you also follow me on Twitter, you will definitely know as well. So thank you guys so much for your continued support. I'll see you guys next time. This is MarkTech tuning out.